The fastest 3 hours in radio. You're with Brian Kilmeade.
I'm really not focused on it. And I think that too often the politics in Washington has been about the politicians. I'm a pastor. And so when I think about these issues, I think about the people that I've had to stand with in the critical care units while their loved one was dying or between life and death. And not only are they concerned about the sickness, they're wondering how in the world are they going to pay for it. If Kelly Loeffler has her way, 1.8 million Georgians with pre-existing conditions, that means people with hypertension, people with diabetes, folks who've had a stroke, cancer, people who are recovering from COVID would not be able to get health care. I think that's morally wrong. And it's my faith that actually informs that. She can't explain why she wants to take away people's health care. She knows that junk health.
The question was, Ari, how do you feel about packing the court? I'm not focused on that. The worst parry in the history of debating. Here with more, Senator Tom Cotton, Senate Select Committee member, Senate Armed Committee member, Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs member, but still has time for us. Senator, we got to find out if he's going to pack the court. How about no? Try that. Or yes.
Yeah, Brian, that answer reminds me of the clip from that old movie. That long, rambling, incoherent answer has made us all dumber just for listening to it.
I think it was Billy Madison. Was it Billy Madison?
Yeah, Billy Madison.
Yeah.
We know the answer to the question, though, from that long, rambling, incoherent answer is that, yes, he will pack the court, and he knows it's massively unpopular, and he won't tell the people of Georgia he plans to pack the court. I thought Kelly did an outstanding job in her debate on Sunday night, exposing just how radical and liberal Raphael Warnock is. And time and again, when she pointed out that he had said, you can't serve God and in the military, or that America needs to repent for its worship of whiteness, or that he'd compared Israel to an apartheid state, or welcomed Fidel Castro to his church in New York, or been arrested for obstructing justice into a child abuse allegation. He had no answer, because there is no answer, because those are all the simple, cold, hard facts about radical liberal Raphael Warnock.
Well, I mean, he does have those things, and he is a bit of a speaker. I mean, she did seem a little bit robotic. It was her probably first debate ever between the two, and it was just a debate in which both sides were allowed not to answer any question. They're going to put Perdue and Loeffler, they're going after them in their spots and in their speeches about their stock investments. Both of them exonerated. How would you recommend, with the additional experience you have, they handle this? Right now, they're choosing just to avoid talking about it.
Well, Brian, my personal technique has always been not to have enough money to invest in stocks.
Good job.
But Brian, the point you make is right, that multiple organizations, whether it's the Senate Ethics Committee or the Department of Justice or what have you, have investigated these trumped-up political allegations and dismissed them as lacking all basis in fact. David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler were found to have done nothing wrong. The reason John Ossoff, a trust fund socialist, and radical liberal Raphael Warnock are attacking David and Kelly on these grounds is because they don't have anything else to say, and they're trying to deflect attention away from their own radical views, like John Ossoff welcoming Bernie Sanders support and wanting to impose Medicare for all in Georgia and take away their insurance on the job, or Raphael Warnock calling Israel an apartheid state. These are the kind of radical views that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock have, that they're trying to deflect attention away by accusing David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler frivolously of misconduct. They also want to deflect attention away from the fact that Chuck Schumer's position on these races is that Georgia is his for the taking, and once he does, he's going to change America. I bet most people in Georgia don't want Chuck Schumer's flavor of change.
I imagine that. I don't think he would get 9 votes. Here's Lindsey Graham. He's concerned about the whole Georgia structure with his absentee ballots. And the fact is, they were not really cross-checked to see if anybody was dead or still living there in many cases. And they had an opportunity to do so, but they didn't on the Republican side. They weren't organized enough. Here's what Lindsey Graham said last night, cut 25.
But the bottom line is the governor of Georgia could call a legislative session into being tomorrow to go ahead and audit the signatures so we'd have confidence in the presidential outcome. Maybe it worked. I don't know without an audit. And change the law while you still can. I just can't get over. I love Georgia. I'm a neighbor to Georgia. My family came from Georgia. We're not asking you to do anything wrong. We're asking you to call for an audit of signatures that are definitely in question and change your laws before it's too late in the Senate runoff that will determine the quality of life in America. Please act while you can.
Because of the new absentee voters, making people eligible because of the pandemic that we're in. They're not going to call a session. So how are you going to handle that, Senator? Have you got that deep?
Yeah, Brian, so let me say first a few things. If you're in Georgia and you want to vote for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, you should have confidence. You can contact their campaigns. They'll help you get an absentee ballot if you're worried about getting this virus. If you don't want to vote by absentee ballot, you should go early vote starting Monday, December 14th, or vote on Election Day, January 5th. Now, second, how do you know those votes are going to count? I think Lindsay is onto something there. Georgia needs to take more steps to ensure some of the irregularities we have seen in the last election don't happen on January 5th. But I can assure all your listeners, especially those Georgia voters, that the Loeffler and the Perdue campaigns and the RNC and the Republican Senate Committee is taking every step that they can to ensure that every procedure is followed in every single precinct. Have a lot more manpower, a lot more resources concentrated on one state than it was when it was diffused across 15 or 20 competitive states on November 3rd. Now, third, if you want to do your part to help out, first off, make sure that those campaigns have the resources they need. Go to georgiabattleground.com, gabattleground.com, to pitch in a few bucks to help Kelly and David make sure that every legal vote counts and no illegal votes counts. And if you really want to help, you can go down to Georgia and you can pitch in for a few days. These campaigns and these committees are taking great steps to make sure that we get out the vote between now and January 5th and that we protect that vote. So if you want Christmas in Georgia, sounds kind of like the title of a Hallmark movie, talk to their campaigns, go down to Georgia, enjoy the Peach State at Christmas time and New Year's, and help them get elected on January 5th.
So right now, the stats read, Ossoff has raised $28 million, Perdue just $15 million. He beat him by 88,000 on November 3rd. We'll see if that holds up with all the attention and all the money. Now, fundraising on the other side, Warnock's got 27, Loeffler's got 28, and of course she could self-finance, richest person in Congress. So total spend, Warnock spent 16, Loeffler spent 22. Looking down the line, what could you learn? I don't know how pervasive you know Georgia because you have your hands full in Arkansas, but looking down the line, what did the president not get that other presidential candidates did get that Loeffler and Perdue should be focused on?
Well, Brian, I spent a lot of time in my life in Georgia. I will say my campaign stops there this year have been a little more enjoyable and pleasant than my stay in the woods outside Fort Benning 15 years ago. David and Kelly do need your help. That's why I urge everyone to go to georgiabattleground.com, gabattleground.com, to help close that financial gap. What you saw on Election Day is that the president in Georgia, as in so many states, had massive, massive turnout in the rural and the exurban areas of Georgia, something that no other Republican president or nominee has ever generated. I mean, President Trump got 11 million more votes across the country than he did in 2016. As all of our candidates did, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler benefited from that massive turnout in the rural and the exurban areas. So it's really vital that all of those first-time voters who came out and voted on November 3rd for Donald Trump and David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler do it one more time. That was the exact message the president delivered on Saturday night in Valdosta, Georgia, at his rally, that every person who came out to vote for him needs to come out and vote to stop Chuck Schumer from taking over the United States Senate. That's why at that rally they had tables signing people up to register to vote and to request absentee ballots if they wanted. The president is all in on these Georgia runoff elections for his strong allies and good friends, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler.
So here's what Joe Biden is about to do. He's about to nominate for retired four-star General Lloyd Austin, which has been brought up by our people. Anyone who gets to this point in their career, African-American, heard great things. But upon further review, people have brought up this article in the New Yorker in 2016 about where Barack Obama came up with a statement that there is no ISIS threat, and they're just the JV team. And here's what they said. Early in 2014, Obama's intelligence advisors told him that ISIS was of marginal importance. General Lloyd Austin, then the commander of Central Command, which oversees U.S. military operations in the Middle East, told the White House the Islamic State was a flash in the pan. The analysis led Obama to an interview with the New Yorker to describe the constellation of jihadist groups in Iraq and Syria as terrorism's JV team. Does that bother you? Is that typical of a general in the field? Does that make you change your make you feel as though you can't vote for him?
Well, so Brian, those are the kind of reports I would want to scrutinize and explore should he come before the Senate. I don't want to necessarily credit them based on anonymous reporting, but there is a prior question, and I think that question is very important, and that's whether or not the Congress will grant him the needed waiver under federal law since he has not been retired for more than 7 years. We went through this 4 years ago, if you recall. There's a reason why federal law prohibits retired generals from serving as a Secretary of Defense with fewer than 7 years out from the Pentagon. It's to maintain proper balance in civil-military relations. And Congress just barely granted Jim Mattis that waiver in 2017. I can tell you that many representatives and senators from the far left to the most conservative Republicans believe that was a mistake and that it ought not be repeated. And in fact, Jack Reed, the senior Democrat on the Armed Services Committee, said at the time that he would not vote for another waiver for another general under any circumstances. So I think that's a very important question that Congress is going to have to explore before we can get to the merits of General Austin's nomination. I respect General Austin and his service to the nation over 40 years. That prior question is not a reflection on him or his views or his record in any way. What the Congress thinks about the proper balance of civil-military relations inside the Pentagon.
So the Axios today details this extensive spying operation that the Chinese are undergoing in the U.S. for decades, trying to target young, up-and-coming politicians. Sorry, you didn't make the list. And trying to infiltrate their campaign like Eric Swalwell and others in the area, and even named some people. Were you aware of this type of sophisticated operation?
Brian, I don't want to comment about particular intelligence matters. I will say that California Democrats seem to have a problem with Chinese spying. First, it was Dianne Feinstein having a Chinese agent as her driver, and now it's Eric Swalwell.
Yeah, I'm sure we didn't pay a price there. She's a ranking member of the Intelligence Committee.
So California Democrats may want to think twice about some of their security protocols. I will simply say this. Every member of Congress has been targeted by Chinese intelligence in one way or another. I suspect that most people in Beijing don't think they're going to get very far with me, but that does not mean that Chinese intelligence isn't targeting every member of Congress, and for that matter, every governor and cabinet officials and future cabinet officials for influence operations. Sometimes those things can be very nefarious. Sometimes they're just as simple as dangling job prospects for one state in front of politicians, or getting American businesses to come lobby senators and representatives for China-friendly policies. Every elected official in America should be alert to the risk of Chinese meddling.
Well, this woman, Fang, who came here in her 20s, she evidently helped fundraise for Tulsi Gabbard as well as Ro Khanna and Congresswoman Judy Chu of all of California, and Congressman Mike Honda, all of California. It's they're obsessed with us. They're obsessed of stealing our technology, and somehow they believe that if you offer us enough money, we'll roll over.
Well, unfortunately, Brian, that has actually been the case for a lot of American businesses and sectors of our economy. They essentially view, corporate America as an extension of their own embassy or intelligence services to come lobby the Congress and lobby the administration and lobby governors for pro-China policies. And for too often, politicians in both parties succumb to that. They succumb to the specter of Chinese investment in their states, or the promise of more Chinese jobs or more jobs that China funds in their states that almost never comes to pass. And in the end, as you say, they usually steal technology and take it back to China. I just heard a story this week of a small business in the food processing sector that agreed to open a facility in China and now is getting continually squeezed by them, trying to turn over their technology, cut their profit margins, so on and so forth. You should be very leery about going into business with China.
I will be. I promise not to, and I'm sure you took a vow of poverty as well. So we're willing to make it with the American manufacturing and keeping our principles together. Senator Tom Cotton, you have 2 senators to elect. Like you have nothing else to do. Get it done.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
All right. Go get them. 1-866-408-7669.
Newsmakers and newsbreakers. Hear it first. Only on the Brian Kilmeade Show.